Crypto is on the rise, making that dough in the crypto paradigm. Watching it go, buying low, selling high. Riding the wave, I'm here to stay, living in the digital age. No banks, no fees, just decentralized. It's crypto paradise. Ooh. No banks, no fees.
Alrighty, let's kick this thing off. Good morning from Paradise Surfers. My name is Crypto Amaru, joined as always by Nick the Crypto Hitman, and it is Thursday, January 15th. Wow, the new year is flying by. We have an excellent slate of stories to cover for you guys today. The big one, Brian Armstrong coming out and fudding the CLARITY Act, saying he will not support it in its current iteration and current form. Is this good? Is this bad? How will this affect the financial markets and crypto? We will discuss, and we will explain to you our take on all of the above. All right. What else we got cooking for today? Oh, Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast. Is Mr. Beast getting into crypto? Is Tom Lee onboarding Mr. Beast into Ethereum? That could be juicy. We'll see how that one plays out. There seems to be some money sloshing back and forth between BitMine and Mr. Beast's company. Kind of a fun story to cover as well. We got a lot of other good stuff today. I saw CoinGecko had reported that some 13 million coins had died or something last year, some enormous number. Hopefully not too many coins you guys are in or we're in. Man, this industry can be a minefield, no doubt. So we'll cover that as well. What does that all mean? All right. That's enough of a bit of a preamble. Big shout out to all the 30,000 people that watched the stream yesterday. Hopefully we can beat that today. Appreciate you guys jumping in and checking us out. Maybe we'll start with the CLARITY Act. That yesterday around 4 p.m. it broke that Brian Armstrong and Coinbase were not going to be supporting it. We didn't see any market, didn't affect Bitcoin or Ethereum price performance by any means. But how do you think this plays out? Do we ultimately get a new version of the CLARITY Act with better text in there, or is it going to be the bank's version that ultimately gets passed?
Well, I mean, this was kind of all the FUD, I like to say, in the Discord yesterday. A couple people asking about it. And my reply was, ultimately, Brian Armstrong doesn't decide whether the CLARITY Act goes to vote or not or gets passed. He is a big name in the space who kind of fumbled the bag a little bit because, let's be honest, Coinbase doesn't own much Bitcoin or Ethereum. Anyways, big name, regulated, very important opinion, but ultimately isn't the decision maker. So this was just him kind of pointing out his opinions with what is bad with the CLARITY Act and what they don't really want to support. Now, I will say to follow this up, we are going to go to a headline that the CLARITY Act vote has been delayed. So it looks like his opinion does matter, and some people on the pro-crypto side have agreed with his sentiment. But this is what Brian Armstrong said yesterday. After reviewing the Senate banking draft text over the last 48 hours, Coinbase unfortunately cannot support the bill as written. There are too many issues, including a de facto ban on tokenized equities, which we don't want. This is a big bullishness for Ethereum, is the tokenization of stock entity equities to have transparency on chain, and that chosen chain is Ethereum, which sends it to the absolute moon. DeFi prohibitions, giving the government unlimited access to your financial records and removing your right to privacy. We don't like that either. And the market doesn't like that. We've seen the ZEC run, the Zen run, the Monero run, the Dash run. People want privacy, and they're going to jail for freedom of speech in Europe, and we don't want that to trickle into the financial markets as well. Erosion of the CFTC's authority, stifling innovation, and making subservient to the SEC. I thought the SEC was trying to take a step back when it comes to crypto because they've got caught with their hand in the cookie jar over the years, not knowing what the heck they're doing, and now they're trying to get the power back. That does not make sense. That's not what we've seen for the past year or so, so I don't know how that snuck in there. And then lastly, draft amendments that would kill rewards on stablecoins, allowing banks to ban their competition. We talked about this heavily. We thought this was the one and only thing that they had to get removed because banks don't want that competition until when? Until the banks have their own stablecoin infrastructure, and then they'll go back and lobby for this to go into play. So that one I'm less worried about. I mean, USDC's offered rewards forever. At this point in the market cycle, I wish people would just get out of stables and get into the tokens so they go up in price. But the first three are pretty eye-opening. Which one stands out to you?
So part of me thinks this is a negotiating tactic on the part of the banks, right? Because as I understand it, the main sticking point had been the interest rewards, essentially, to be able to be earned on the stable coins. And then all of a sudden, last minute, you see these 3 other essentially clauses inserted in there, which hadn't been there previously. Is this a negotiating tactic so that they ultimately the banks ultimately win on the stablecoin things, but they give up pushing the other clauses? Could be. I don't know. I think we ultimately get to a point where the tokenized equities ultimately do get to move forward, probably with some additional oversight or additional, let's call it registration requirements, so that you keep it on par. You have to keep everything on par with the existing industry and infrastructure that offers actual equity trading. If you're going to make it tokenized, it's got to be similar. So you're going to have some regulation around that, I would imagine. The privacy stuff around DeFi concerns me a lot. I haven't looked into the exact text of that. My hope is it completely gets removed and we keep DeFi private and we keep DeFi decentralized, right? That's the only way that makes sense, is to keep DeFi truly decentralized, and not have, surveillance on all your trades, etc. The SEC versus the CFTC, I can't speak intelligently about that. I don't know the inner workings of that one, but my understanding was the CFTC was going to be sort of taking a lot of control from a regulatory standpoint from the SEC, and they were going to be mostly in charge of this asset class. So let's see if that persists. But the big one, I think the banks are going to win on this one too. I think the banks are going to win on the stablecoin interest. But my understanding was there had been some kind of workaround, there was enough loopholes so that Coinbase could continue to offer their 5% on USDC if you stake it over on the platform, and everyone was going to kind of walk away feeling like, well, I didn't get everything I wanted on that negotiation, but it's good enough, and let's move forward with the bill. So that's my hope. We got to keep DeFi private. The other stuff I care less about, although the tokenized equity is important if you're a ETH holder, as I am, because that's where all those transactions were going to run. And then the big thing is the stable coins. So let's get it figured out, guys. Let's get it figured out. Let's get Elizabeth Warren out of this negotiation. As my understanding, she came in last second, and all of a sudden, all these new ridiculous clauses are here.
I don't understand how Elizabeth Warren is still in power. I guess I get it. It's the political system, but why does her opinion even matter? I mean, this lady has been so wrong for so long on crypto assets, starting with Bitcoin. I just don't understand how anything she brings to the table is even taken seriously, and that's kind of the problem with the, separation in politics that we have right now. This is supposed to be like a bipartisan issue, yet the left is still like going with Elizabeth Warren to even allow her to get this kind of stuff pushed into bills is kind of wild, considering she's been so wrong. She's been as wrong as fucking Bill Gates and all these guys who were calling it rat poison and it was going to zero, and JP Diamond, all these guys. That's how wrong she was, yet she's still getting a big voice in the regulation of an industry that she knows nothing about.
Yeah, and outside of that, she basically is setting forth the positions of the banks. She's on the side of the big banks and the lobbyists for the banks.
I wonder why.
Aren't you supposed to be standing up for the little guy? Isn't that her thing? Like, aren't you some kind of socialist who cares about like the common man? And yet everything you do from a policy standpoint is in favor of the biggest banks and the biggest institutions, and against individual sovereignty and against individual rights. So the whole thing makes your head spin a little bit. My hope was she gets voted out at some point, but she comes from an ultra liberal state and she's basically a celebrity. And so I wouldn't hold your breath on her getting removed from Congress anytime soon, sadly enough.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't just apply to crypto as well. They do the same thing in the medical field and with pharmaceuticals. They all talk shit on JFK, but he's the one getting, food dyes out of there, junk food out of there for EBT and everything else, saving taxpayer dollars, but also making people healthier. And they fight against that. Why? Because they're getting paid by Big Pharma. And if people aren't sick, Big Pharma don't make money, and then they don't get their money in the back end. I mean, that's the biggest thing. They're socialist on what they say, but they're fraudster capitalist on what they receive. Bernie Sanders always talking about the little guy, yet he owns like 3, 4, 5 property and gets millions of dollars from pretty schemy sources in the back end. So that's why I disagree with a lot of what they're doing, and that's why even the way they live proves that socialism doesn't work, and now they're trying to apply that to cryptocurrencies, the next financial market, the next financial industry globally that's going on right now.
Well, if you live in the States and you can vote, I've been saying for a while now, if you own crypto and you are still voting Democrat, well, then you just haven't been paying attention because that party is not in favor of this asset class. So get out there and vote if you're here in the States. If you're not, well, I'm sure it's a similar story happening in Europe, et cetera, with the liberals coming after crypto and wanting to track all your transactions and tax you up the wazoo and, whatever. So you guys know what to do. Vote conservative. I think it's going to work out just fine. Let's check the markets. What do we got on the? Is this the Nasdaq?
Yeah, so I got the Nasdaq up right here. Pretty nice to see a gap higher before the market opened. And again, it continues to hold this moving average here, which means it continues to build its bullish trend up. And we like to call this a pork blaster over on Learn Crypto, a high level consolidation. And if you break out to the upside, that would be a pork blaster for you. The crazy thing about this, if you actually did a measured move, you'd be looking at something kind of insane that I don't even think is possible. Your measured move would be something like this. You're cloning this asset here, and then you're dragging this onto a breakout, which means that yes, the ISM still has to move for quite a while, and yes, we have an elongated cycle. Now, there will be volatility within this, even if you broke up, but that just shows that upside objectives of the Nasdaq potentially in the 30,000 and above range for the first time ever in history, obviously, with the all-time high we just put into place during November. So, I mean, the structure for these things, I know people are like, how can the values continue to go higher? But it is absolutely, first of all, they're the debasement of the dollar. Everything's in the dollar, so everything goes up and to the right over time. But this just shows you the GDP is strong, interest rates are coming down, liquidity is coming back, stimulus checks is coming, tax refunds is coming. That all affects the underlying revenue and profits for these businesses that make up the Nasdaq. And when they have good profits, things go up and to the right. When there's good clarity around the markets, things go up and to the right. And when fiat currency keeps debasing itself, well, they go up and to the right. Now, can there be volatility? Sure, but in the short term, this bull trend continues to build on the Nasdaq, which is kind of the risk-on stock plays, the tech stock plays, which in the past has really driven Bitcoin and Ethereum.
If you had asked someone 10 years ago, will the Nasdaq ever hit 20,000? They say, no way, can't hit 20, can't get that high. No way that's going to happen. If you had asked someone 10 years ago, would Bitcoin ever hit 100,000? No way, never going to happen. Guys, assets always go higher. Maybe not every single one of them, but the Nasdaq is a composite of hundreds of different companies. They're going to end up doing well over time, most of them anyway. Same with Bitcoin, same with Ethereum, right? These blue chip assets, they go up over time. And I know in the moment it feels like it's impossible. The Nasdaq will never hit 30,000. I'm telling you, dude, 10 years ago, if you asked them if it could hit 20,000, they would have said, no, not possible. And here we are today. So things go up, assets go up. I hope you're owning some of them because that's the only way to outperform inflation and keep up with the debasement of the dollar. So
yeah, and the crazy thing is too with the Nasdaq, 10 years ago at 10,000 to 20,000 is double up. 20 to 30 is only a 50% gain. So, it seems like a massive number, but percentage-wise, it's even less of a percentage gain compared to what people were talking about in the past.
There you go. It's going to happen. I don't know when it happens. Hopefully at some point in the next, few years. So I would love to see it continue to grind up. But even if it takes another 10 years, I'll be here for it. So what do we got here? Is this a Bitcoin chart?
Here's the Bitcoin chart. Obviously, we were talking about the higher lows, the bull formation, the bullish momentum coming as it broke above the moving averages, retested it perfect. And then I drew this line on here yesterday during the live show saying, hey, it kind of looks like the ascending triangle here. If it breaks out, you probably break out, retest, and then your next objective is towards that 110, which our local bear, Hexbull, has been talking about, a bearish trap up to 110,000 and then dump out to 40K. I think he raised it to 45K, but look what happened overnight. Well, we have broken out, and now we're kind of backtracking a little bit, but still at $96,000. You could potentially hold in the level around 94 to 95. That would still be bullish momentum, bouncing off previous support, and continue to march its way higher. Obviously, if there's a black swan event, maybe this gets messed up a little bit. Maybe the CLARITY Act being postponed has caused some of this FUD. It did stifle momentum a little bit, but we haven't seen a cascading effect, which is good to see. Is there any black swans kind of on your radar that could slow down the progress that we're having in Bitcoin? Or I know the one potential black swan we were going to talk about today, maybe in fact that does cause Bitcoin to surge higher.
So, well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to all the viewers. We got a lot of comments here, so I don't want to ignore you guys. So let's do that first, then I'll talk about Black Swan. We'll talk about Clarity Act some more. Good morning, Martin. Hello, hello. Good morning, Todd, Meet Chapo, Fat Sammy. Appreciate you guys. Nonso. Fat Sammy's comment here I want to highlight. In the UK, they are very anti-crypto too. They want to stop individuals from holding more than 10,000 stablecoins to protect the banks. Disgusting. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy. I don't know how that could be legally and constitutionally permitted. I know the UK doesn't have as many individual rights as we have in the US, but the notion that you couldn't own over a certain amount of a particular asset just completely flies in the face of individual liberty and individual rights. And I can't even wrap my head around that being allowed. But I know the UK is
did that with
definitely not.
cash. Australia did that with their fiat cash, which is even crazier. So that's the thing that I want people to understand is the freedoms and liberties and this kind of greatness that we call the Western civilization is starting to crumble and starting to fail in the face of suicidal empathy, a new world order, the mixing of all the cultures, and now your loss of privacy to protect you. And that's what we're seeing. Australia did that a few years ago. 10,000 cash is not allowed. You're not even allowed to do that. So now it's getting into stable coins, which is even crazier because that's kind of your digital identity that they're taking away from you as well.
Unreal, guys. That's a scary thought. It can happen anywhere, and it can happen quicker than you can imagine. So, again, vote accordingly, guys. So, before we get into Hexpol's comment around the price predictions of Bitcoin as we move forward here, the black swan. This could be the black swan that wouldn't even really be a black swan at this point because it's entirely foreseeable. The potential, quote, war between the U.S. and Iran. I don't see it actually happening. The reason I don't think it's going to happen is because I was watching the Trump press conference yesterday, and obviously he can say one thing and do another, but apparently his red line was these executions. You know, Iran, the regime there was going to start executing protesters, right, that they had arrested. But I guess they said they're not going to do that. They're not going to do the executions, thank goodness. And so assuming the executions are off, I think Trump probably doesn't move ahead with any kind of an attack. But if they just start killing and gunning down more protesters, as they apparently have been doing, I don't know. I don't know what Trump will ultimately do. But from a financial market standpoint, this isn't really a true black swan because it's entirely foreseeable, right? It's just like a slow moving black. We're moving towards some sort of iceberg, and we may hit it. We may veer out of the way last second, but I don't think it would be entirely unexpected if something does happen here.
Yeah, and that was kind of my question. Is it going to be a black swan that hurts Bitcoin and crypto, or would it actually be something that helps Bitcoin surge? Now, we don't know why Bitcoin has been surging off the lows. Obviously, we talk about the macros that we see here in financial markets and the bullish things going on, and the fact that there's a decorrelation between, hey, what is Bitcoin price, what is stock price? It needs to play catch up. But also in the face of the war that was between the bombings of Iran and Israel, we didn't really see much of a sell-off. As of late, this conflict with Iran has been very foreseeable. Things have been going on in the background. We sent the Iran, essentially, Trump was part of sending the Iranian fiat currency to near zero, and Bitcoin's only been going up in the face of that. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I'm sure if it escalates to a full-out war, that we would have some selling in Bitcoin potentially. But remember, Bitcoin was made for global uncertainty, for fiat uncertainty, and maybe that's what helps it catch a bid. Maybe to avoid sanctions, Iran's going to invest in more Bitcoin. Maybe to avoid sanctions, Iranian, allies like Russia or whatever doing oil trades is going to do it via Bitcoin, and that means they have to have an underlying holding there, which could send prices higher as well.
Hard to predict exactly how this is going to play out, but what I will say about markets as it relates to wars or conflicts, you look at there's data on this. There's tons of data on it, and you can see anytime there's an outbreak of a conflict or war, I put that in air quotes very generously. You see a very temporary dip, price correction, volatility, and then usually within just a matter of days, the market recovers and it's almost completely forgotten about the war, and you're marching higher again. So even if, like, worst case scenario, Trump decides to bomb Iran tomorrow, first of all, I don't think they can retaliate in a meaningful way to cause a true war. It would just be basically the U.S. putting them in their place, and then they just don't do anything because they can't. So it wouldn't be a war. It would just be that. And if it does happen, you'd see probably a sell-off on Bitcoin, fear-based sell-off, and then a couple days later, people have forgotten about it, and the market's going back higher as it had been trending before. So I don't know. I'm not losing sleep over it. I'm not selling my assets in anticipation of, some war breaking out. I don't even think it happens, and if it does, we're going to bounce back quick.
Yeah, and for people trying to decide on which side you should be on, the United States and Western civilization, or Iran and their current, arguably terrorist regime. I mean, I think the craziest thing that a lot of people don't realize is I want you to look up Iran in the 60s and 70s. Iran in the 60s and 70s, in the Middle Eastern countries at least, was the destination spot, was the, Aspen over there was the vacation spot for the other surrounding countries that were in a lot of turmoil. And that all changed when this kind of regime and this kind of leadership and Sharia law and the religious status and culture over there shifted. So I just want you to look up videos, look up pictures, and look what it used to be, not that long ago, and then look at what it is now. And I think you can easily make the decision of which way that society wants to go and why people are protesting the current regime and the current belief system that is in place in Iran. That's all I can say on that.
Yeah, look, I think it's good to have an opinion on these things. It's good to research the history, but you'll never know as much as the people on the ground there living it. And so I don't pretend to know more than them. But what I do is I support the majority. If the majority is saying we don't want to live under this kind of rule, which who would, by the way? I mean, just logically, like, no one wants to live under extreme control and fear and a totalitarian government. No one wants that. And so 90% of the population is saying and protesting and saying we want to change. Well, I support them. I don't know all the history. I'm not some, learned guy when it comes to the history of Iran or something like that. But if the people, 90% of the people want out, well, let's support them in that, And I'm not saying go. No, they ask yourself, do you start a military intervention to take out the leadership? Okay, that becomes a trigger question. I don't necessarily want to do that as an American sitting here, all half around the world. Should we be doing regime change, and taking out the top guys and stuff? Venezuela was different. That's right in our backyard. This, halfway around the world. So let's hope it plays out peacefully. Let's hope no war. Let's hope there's regime change, just sort of the result of this protest. And let's hope for the best.
Yeah, and I'm not even one for regime changes. I'm not saying they always work. I'm just saying, when we look at that from this perspective and what's gone on there, maybe we should have immigration reform and we shouldn't allow that culture to come here and kind of fester and get its roots in, because we see what the result is in other countries. So why would you welcome that in your own house? That's the biggest thing. These people don't want war, you don't want regime change. Okay, then we got to be strict on our immigration policy, and we're not allowing people who created that mess over there, that belief, that culture, that doesn't assimilate with the Western civilization culture. It doesn't assimilate with Catholicism, Judaism. It just doesn't. So if that's where we had our success as a country, why are we going to switch that up and invite those people into our house? You wouldn't invite them into your own home. So why are you inviting them to your house and your land to let them kind of change the culture and not assimilate to the culture here? They've already done it there. We see the outcome. I don't know why people want to welcome that. So back on to what's going on in Bitcoin. Here is Hexbull, the resident bear. Guys, Dr. Profit Private Group has called adding shorts from 99K to 107. If you're already short, he's losing right now. The market, this marks the right shoulder for Bitcoin before doom bear market. Are you ready? That means that the 4-year cycle is kind of dead, though, because the extension and the timing of that. But I wanted to zoom out on our Bitcoin chart, and we can kind of see that. So he's saying this is a big left shoulder that formed in February 2025. Then the new all-time highs formed the head as late as September of 2025. We had that big sell-off, and now we're working to form a right shoulder, which will get you around $110,000, right to where our measure move is. You would consolidate, you would drop, and the neckline would be in the 90s. So you would drop down here below 100K, probably to about these levels, break the neckline, and then if you did a measured move, they upped it from $40,000 to now $45,000 mark for the bear market to finally end, which would be another 50% drop, 60% drop from current levels.
I mean, look, it's been our position that anything can happen, but to my mind, that's not a likely outcome here. And I'm just, again, trying to understand what would cause that massive of a sell-off when you have Michael Saylor constantly buying, when you have the ETFs. How many? We're at 60 billion, maybe more, maybe 100 billion net buyers on these Bitcoin ETFs. It's not slowing down. You have institutions buying in. I'm now seeing the endowments of Dartmouth and Harvard and other Ivy Leagues. They're buying into Bitcoin. How many digital asset treasuries? I know, Strategy is the main one, but there's hundreds of these companies. There's the MetaPlanet one in Japan. There are more net buyers than net sellers of this asset, in my estimation. If you look even just at, what strategy has bought over the last week. It's dwarfed the amount that's entered the market through the miners. So, okay, could the whales do some coordinated sell-off? Maybe, I don't know. But how are we going to get from 110 to $45,000? That is a lot of selling and barely any buying, and I just don't see it happening. I just do not see that happening, guys.
Yeah, and the other thing too, in my estimation, a lot of the people who believe in the 4-year cycle, which sounds like Dr. Profit does, they've already sold, right? And even the people who are major bulls in Bitcoin and we're just like, man, I just want to sleep at night. So in case the 4-year cycle is right, I'm selling here at 90K, 100K, 120K, 109K, 95K because I have $9 billion. Yes, a whale of 9 billion sold, a whale of 3 billion sold, a whale of 1.5 billion sold. All the retail investors are already out of the market, and all of the retail investors who think they're somebody but they're really not, they got 50K, 100K, whatever, but they believe in the 4-year cycle, they've already sold. So at some point, it's like the only way that really happens isn't from 4-year cyclists, they're already out. Isn't from bears, they're already out. Maybe you can say there's traders up there at 110 because this is a pretty clean picture of a head and shoulders. Or you would need a massive black swan or unwinding of not only the crypto financial markets, but the traditional financial markets as well. You would need the FUD around MicroStrategy to be correct. They got to sell all their Bitcoin, which they've proven they don't need to. But that's the kind of unwinding you would need to see with Bitcoin. The thing is, we just had another massive unwinding in October. And look where that led us, higher low. And now we're moving forward here in 2026. So it's like, what kind of unwinding can realistically happen that would have financial implications down to 45,000? And that's the question mark, because the one just happened, like I said, in October. The 4-year cyclists have sold. Major Bitcoin bulls and believers, 9 billion, 10 billion, 12 billion, have sold via Galaxy Digital's help. So where does that selling pressure come from to send us down those low at this point in time? With liquidity about to come in, interest rate going down. ISM has been the longest period of time below 50 ever. So you're going to say everything needs to blow up for that to really play out. And I'm not in the position to say that I believe that. Instead, I'm looking at the macros, I'm looking at the fundamentals, I'm looking at the liquidity, and I'm objectively looking at the ISM as being an indicator for the Bitcoin cycle, not just the 4-year cycle that it's been on in the past.
The other thing to consider, the vested interests, the likes of Binance, Coinbase, BlackRock, Fidelity, Bank of America, I could go on and on, all these new entrants from Wall Street, their interest is actually in price go up. Because when price go up, they get more buyers of their ETFs or whatever product that they're selling. They earn more in fees, right? And they're also presumably maybe have bought the lows as well and will look to offload when we're 2-3x higher from here. So the very, very rich and powerful around the world are all betting that this asset go higher and have billions of dollars on the line that this asset go higher. And so I'm sticking with them. I'm sticking with them rather than anonymous Dr. Profit on X. Sorry.
Now, here's something that you have better understanding than me because you're in the trenches with Powell. I think you guys, have drinks together. I don't know. But you seem to know more about it when it comes to jobless claims and what's going on here. I saw this. You shared it. Breaking news, U.S. initial jobless claims, actual 198,000, expected 215,000. What does this mean for you? What does this mean for the potential interest rate cut in January 27th that you've kind of started to fade away due to some of the headwinds that we've talked about over the past few days?
Yeah, so these numbers just give further credence to the notion that they won't be cutting rates because it looks like a little bit less joblessness claims coming in. So people looking for work, a little bit less than they had expected. A lot of these numbers I think are, I don't want to call them fugazi, but they get revised and changed all the time. And it's sort of hard to believe, and you sort of wonder whether maybe sometimes the numbers are made up to advance a narrative or advance whatever interest rate decision they had already decided upon. But I won't go down that conspiracy rabbit hole. All I know is this is further evidence that maybe the labor market isn't quite as bad as the prognosticators had expected it to be, and therefore the Fed is not going to be in a hurry to cut the rates. Looking at the labor market, we've already talked about the inflation data coming in a little bit, maybe. Well, it came in at expectations, and I think was flat year over year. I think they were expecting 2.7% inflation. That's what they got. It hadn't gone down. So anyway, look, I've a little bit lost hope in the January cut. I know Nick's still sticking with it, and by God, I hope you're right. I hope they end up cutting. But even if they don't, I'm looking ahead. Trump needs to announce the new head of the Fed coming in here. That should buoy the markets a bit. And we need to start thinking about after Powell, life after Powell, and what that's going to look like come May 26, which is not that far off.
That is true. 1 second here. Look at group chat. Okay, cool. The founder of a project that we were talking about actually just tried calling me on Twitter, so I guess we'll give him a shout out. We were talking about your mom. We saw that big sell-off on January 12th. We said, hey, that's probably a pretty good low. It rallied from that about 30% up, and now it is back to just a couple percentage points above that previous low with the launch of the new project DTGC. So we'll see what he has to say about those. Again, I was talking about how, hey, DTGC is moving, but really people are rotating out of your mom, and that is probably a capitulation to kind of buy into. And so far, that's about flat if you bought the exact day. You are down if you chased it a day or two later, but we are seeing Pulse Chain overall down about 2 to 3% today, with Ethereum backing up about 0.5%. So nothing out of the ordinary there. I still think it's a low cap meme coin if you like it, with a good narrative, and we have been talking to the founder there a little bit. We're not in the trenches, not an official marketing partner there per se just yet, but we're kind of watching how your mom and their new DTGC kind of plays out. And remember, your mom has massive burnt liquidity paired with PLSX, HEX, INC, and the biggest liquidity pool, from my understanding, I don't know what it is right now, was PTGC, which is an asset we love, and that's burnt. So if PTGC does well over time, your mom is going to get drug up as well. It would be awesome if the founder there is watching, wants to scoop up some cheap surf, pair it with your mom and surf, because your mom is not a tax token, so maybe that drives some volume and some positive momentum moving forward as well. So I just wanted to mention that real quick. And then lastly, talking about Hexbull, talking about Dr. Profit is adding to shorts, which means he's already short as Bitcoin's going up from 99K to 107K. For most people, I don't know your portfolio or how much stables you have, but that is a large range to continue shorting and adding to shorts, especially if you are using leverage, and especially if, say, we even top out at 110, now you're even another 3,000 in the hole. So be careful if you are using leverage trying to DCA into shorts. If you are right on the shorts, eventually, yes, you will make money, but you have to make sure you have enough margin and enough capital to cover the DCA, because that is quite a range. Remember, we've gone from 80K to 95, and he's saying add on from 99 to 107, which is another 8K spread, with max upside to 110, which is another 3K spread. So if you are right about shorting, that is awesome, but if you don't have the margin and collateral to keep adding all the way up, because the top might be 110, 111, 112, you might end up getting liquidated before the bear market actually comes.
Dangerous game to play when you're fighting what seems to be the trend. The trend seems to be we are crawling back up out of the hole that was created back in October at $80,000 low. We've been sort of grinding back up. We're almost back at 100,000, believe it or not, guys. I know it's maybe doesn't feel that way. Perhaps you can pull up, I think I shared the fear and greed indicator. Did I share that with you? It looks like we're finally veering back towards a little bit of greed anyway. We're out of the fear, as I understand it. And maybe I didn't share that with you and I just saw it on my X. But market sentiment's feeling a little bit better. We already had that big sell-off. It feels like the bulls are in control again, guys. So I just be careful shorting here. Trend is your friend. You don't normally want to fight the trend. It's not normally how you make money trading, but best of luck to Dr. Profit. I know he's had some good calls in the past, but I think if you stay short and you're in a bull run, that usually isn't going to work out for you.
Yeah, you'll turn into, what was his name? I can't remember his name. Capo Crypto or whatever, where he literally missed and was apparently shorting the entire way up from 16,000 to new all-time highs for Bitcoin. That's how you blow up. And the crazy thing is, he still makes a lot of income for being wrong that whole time, because people are paying him monthly to be in there. Some believing in him because of his previous calls, and some just in there for the entertainment. So he's making a bag, even though his portfolio was getting crushed. Still has a ton of followers, still remain relevant, and he literally missed the entire bull market for Bitcoin by wanting to be short or calling to not be in spot positions for literally nearly 8x on Bitcoin off the lows. So be careful. You know, bulls get rich, bears look smart. I mean, like the bears look smart when the time makes sense, but at the end of the day, it's real easy to get caught with your hand in the cookie jar. The biggest one is, the Wolf of Wall Street guy. His hedge fund literally just blew up due to thinking that stocks were topped out ages ago, Bitcoin wasn't going anywhere, etc. He was right for a long time, looked smart for a long time, but he literally sent his fund to zero and paid out whatever was left to investors.
Yeah,
And
that
that's
was
why you got to
Michael
be
Burry. It was Michael
yeah.
Burry, the guy who shorted the housing market implosion and got that right. So that was very, very impressive. But has just been short like Nvidia and short all these blue chip companies because he just didn't like whatever he was seeing in like their earnings or whatever. But the market can stay irrational for longer than you can stay liquid. So it's a dangerous game to play if you're doing leverage. Period, long or short. But I mean, the trend seems to have flipped more bullish here. And absent a black swan, I don't know how we're going to crash back down. So let's see.
Yeah, here's the fear and greed index, at least CMCs. When we were in extreme fear, this is when we were getting long because, again, the market can remain irrational to the downside just like it can to the upside. And this is a glaring indicator that, wow, there needs to be some kind of bounce. Even if you're a bear and the bear's saying, okay, a bounce to 110. I've been saying for a long time, I'd be happy with the bounce to 110 and get a chance to reevaluate because 110 is a long way away from $80,000. And say $4,000 or $4,500 ETH is a long way from what we saw, $2,500, $1,800 down there. So if that's the bear market, okay, well, let me reevaluate after a double. I'll take that. But again, we're back to neutral here. Market is somewhat following. We'll see what happens, and we'll keep an eye when we get up here into the massive greed areas. Remember, if you're full-blown bull, full-blown euphoria, you can stay in the greed for longer than the shorts can keep piling on. That's what Crypto Armor was just talking about. The market can stay irrational longer than you can remain liquid, and that's both on the upside and the downside. That's why we have massive tops and massive lows and capitulations in all markets.
Yeah, what's good about this moment in time is we're neither at extreme fear or extreme greed. We're sort of just having reversed off the fear, and we're climbing back up. So um, stay patient here. I don't think you have to go crazy trading long or short. Let's let this market resolve itself. I know there's a lot of uncertainty right now between the tariff decision, which was supposed to happen yesterday, maybe getting pushed out to June. I read as unsubstantiated posts on X, perhaps getting pushed out to the next slate of Supreme Court decisions that are going to be announced. Perhaps as late as June. Iran situation, we got the Clarity Act. But even with all that, I mean, Bitcoin's looking pretty good here. And I just think it's because it's been underpriced for so long compared to every other asset. It's finally just catching up because it was just being weighed down by manipulation, etc.
I agree. So let's look at the charts real quickly, and then we'll go to the final Ethereum news piece we have. I do kind of have a hard stop here at 9:30 for today. We have another call, plus I have some other stuff I need to get done. But again, we sold Bitcoin up here at 118,524. Told you there was a bullish divergence here at 103 before the rally to 116, and then gave official buys down here on the way down at 92,000 and as low as 82,000, which are both up in the green. With the chart kind of looking good here. If we look at a Coinbase here, what did we give you here? We said, hey, there's going to be a bullish divergence form if this goes to a new low, which it did. And then look, it rallied from 226 to as high as 263. So that worked out if you took the trade. Congratulations. If not, you're still sitting on cash after selling at $370 on Coinbase. Really the number one crypto-related stock, I think, moving forward. And if we look at Ethereum, still holding above $3,300 and still looking like a lot like Bitcoin. It has been underperforming here as of late, which is a little bit surprising, but not out of the ordinary because really to be on par with where Bitcoin at, it says that Ethereum should be somewhere around 3,500 to 3,550 based on just chart formations. So talking about Ethereum, here's the last news piece. Do you think this impacts anything? Bitminer not just buying Ethereum. Of course, we know they have bought ownership in other companies, other products, and other protocols, and that's what they're going to continue to do. And apparently they just took a $200 million equity investment in Beast Industries, which is led by the number one YouTuber in the world, Mr. Beast himself.
I love this story. I think it's great for Bitmine. It's great for ETH. It's great for Mr. Beast. It's great for adoption. And let me explain why this is very bullish. So a month or so ago, Mr. Beast, through, I believe, this company, Mr. Beast Industries, announced that they are looking to create a kind of financial app similar to, say, a Robinhood or what have you, where users will have access to buying Bitcoin, Ethereum, crypto, stocks, whatever the case may be, right? And so with this investment, I think Bitmine has sort of established itself and established Ethereum as a very important aspect of whatever new financial app Mr. Beast is building and Mr. Beast is going to launch. And that financial app, by the way, should do wonders for onboarding the next generation of crypto users. My son, he's 5. He loves Mr. Beast. You know, Mr. Beast has how many hundreds of millions of followers who hang on his every word, watch all his shows, eat his Beastables, lunch, Feastables, whatever thing. He's got his hamburgers. I don't know. The guy does everything.
Chocolate bars. Yeah.
Chocolate bar. Whatever he does, millions and millions of people follow and do what he says. And so if he pushes and he launches a financial app with Ethereum front and center, Solana, Bitcoin, whatever, don't you think at least some of his millions of followers are going to start to buy into these assets? I think so.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing for a number of reasons. Number one, it shows that Bitmine has capital flow and investment thesis out there in which it can potentially earn more capital. And if they do win on investment side, what are they going to put that in? They're going to put it in Ethereum infrastructure. So it doesn't mean all their investments will work out, but if they do make money, it's going to go into Ethereum. So I think it's nice, another outlet rather than just buying ETH itself. Second of all, we've been talking about we need retail onboarding. Retail is either gone or stagnant. And when I say retail is stagnant, it means, yes, the wallet numbers have gone up, but ask yourself, the buddies who started putting in $100, $1,000, are they talking about crypto anymore? Are they talking about altcoins? Are they in your group threads talking about, hey, have you heard about this dog meme coin? No, because the current investments they have, if they've held on, are down. And they're not as dedicated to crypto as you are. So they're not paying attention. They're just hodling it and hoping for the best. So you got to get those retail active again. And that's going to be in the form of they're seeing stuff from Mr. Beast or they're seeing green candles. So it's always a chicken before the egg kind of situation. There is retail in the market still, but they're not going to be active participants. They're not going to be evangelists until themselves are up in the green. And this, I think, is a new way to bring new blood into the market and maybe get the headlines back around crypto and get the existing retail who just really never got started because they never saw gains, get them active again, which is the word of mouth and referrals is the biggest way to get people into investments. And right now, that is at a standstill when it comes to the retail market.
Perhaps with these little bit of green candles we've seen proliferate on Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana's looking a little bit better too. I know we've had some runners in the meme coin trenches. Anyway, all these things sort of add up to perhaps retail ultimately becoming more interested in the asset class. We've continuously maintained that the missing piece to get retail excited, the new blood excited, has been upside. It's been price go up. Price hasn't gone up for altcoins, really, outside of a handful of moments here or there, a handful of projects here or there. Hasn't done anything since 2021.
Yeah, 5 years, the same time when Ethereum put in its all-time high. I mean, that's crazy.
It's true. Yeah, so we can't really expect retail to be here yet, but that does not mean they're never coming back. Retail will go where the money is. We saw that with the gold run, silver. Nick's big into Pokemon. Apparently, Pokemon's at all-time highs, and people are flooding in over there. So money will come back. Retail will come back where the green candles are. We just haven't seen the green candles yet, but I think it's coming.
I agree. I love Hexbull coming in here. Thank you for the updates on the bear side of things. And again, once we get to, it's going to be interesting. You know, once we get to that 107, 110, and the bears and bulls both align on that target, then what is the next tug of war from that level? Will we go higher? Will we sell off? Will there be doom and gloom? I don't know. But again, on this ascending triangle, that is the target, 110. Which, if that's the bullish target, that still means there's going to be a consolidation of some kind of drawdown there. And that's when the bears are going to get loud, telling you, I told you so. And you got to make that final line in the sand. Do you take profits in case we go to 40K? Or is this just a consolidation before we go to new all-time highs above 126,000 on Bitcoin and above 5,000 on Ethereum?
You know, one thing being in this market the past few years, doing this show, has taught me is that it is very, very difficult to predict short-term price movements. Some people are pretty good at it, but it's hard to do consistently over time. What's not that hard is to predict the long-term trends of Bitcoin going up over time. And so, you know, I don't pretend to outsmart the market in the short term and know exactly when this, that, the other is going to happen. But my time horizon is 10 years. And I believe that in 10 years from now, we are at $1 million Bitcoin. And so even if we bounce to 110, then it drops here, then it does this, that, the other thing, that's okay because long term, we're still going like this. And I will be here for that in 10 years when Bitcoin is at $1 million.
I think that's a pretty good place to wrap it up. Just want to give a shout out to Spin Pump, flat on the day from yesterday. So the people in our private group are still up in green. Green candles continue to grind higher over there, even with market uncertainty and Solana not moving too much. So shout out to Spin Pump. We also have Emit still holding the $1.70 range. We are up massive on that, not including APR, in on that between 39 cents to 45 cents. It's at $1.70. Shout out to you. And it's still the same discount on Surf Token. It's been hovering around these levels. Some old holders just randomly selling because they're not too many in, but we are picking up some new holders over on Surf as well. Buy 200,000 Surf or more. Get in the Dow group, and I guarantee you will make more than the $500 it costs to get into Surf just from the alpha alone.
Yeah, my goodness. $500. What a steal. Remember we airdropped tokens to some of our OG members. That airdrop was worth like $7,000 at all-time highs to get into the Dow. So now it's 500. Hey, funny how that works. But yeah, appreciate everyone tuning in. I know, Nick, you got to jump off for today. We'll be back tomorrow with another slate of stories. Another fight between the Bulls and the Bears. And who knows, maybe some fun banter as well while we're at it. But until then, guys,